Kananaskis, Alberta, was meant to host a G7 summit of unity. World leaders gathered, hoping to solve global crises, wars, instability, and economic uncertainty. But instead of harmony, the summit was rocked by a different kind of explosion. President Donald Trump, standing before the world's media, announced a shocking 50% tariff on Canadian steel. The room froze, reporters gasped, leaders stared in disbelief. This wasn't just policy, it was a direct challenge to host Prime Minister Mark Carney and a blow to decades of US-Canada partnership. The tariff threatened to unravel a relationship built on trust and open trade. The G7, meant to build bridges, suddenly became the site of a diplomatic firestorm. The promise of cooperation vanished, replaced by anger and confusion. Carney's vision of unity in the Rockies was shattered in an instant. Trump's move was calculated, America first, no matter the cost to allies. The beautiful mountain backdrop became the stage for a dramatic breakdown that would redefine alliances for years. The shockwave was immediate and powerful. For decades, the US and Canada shared more than a border, they shared prosperity. Now, that partnership was in jeopardy. The summit's hopeful beginning had turned into a moment of betrayal. The world watched as the foundation of North American friendship began to crack. The future of the alliance was suddenly uncertain. The G7 was built on the idea that friends solve problems together. For years, these nations ended summits with a united statement, a symbol of shared values. But in June 2025, that tradition collapsed. Trump's tariff turned the meeting into a battleground. Heated arguments replaced handshakes. European leaders pleaded with Trump, warning that a trade war would weaken everyone. Their appeals fell flat. The plan for a final unified statement was abandoned. The world saw a fractured G7 split by deep disagreements. The US made it clear, America would go its own way even if it meant leaving old friends behind. The summit, meant to show Western strength, now revealed painful divisions. The breakdown wasn't just about trade, it was about trust. Allies who once relied on US stability now questioned everything. Trump's actions put old friendships at risk for America's interests. The summit ended under a cloud of uncertainty. The G7's unity was gone, and no one knew how to fix it. The world's most exclusive club had fallen apart. The 50% tariff hit Canada's steel towns like a sledgehammer. Cities like Hamilton and Sault Ste. Marie, built on steel, faced disaster. Generations of families saw their livelihoods threatened overnight. American buyers canceled orders, mills fell silent. Layoffs swept through communities, thousands lost good middle-class jobs. Local businesses suffered as the pain rippled outward. The promise of steady work and security melted away. This was more than an economic crisis, it was personal. Workers who built North America's backbone were left helpless by a distant political decision. The tariff wasn't just a number, it tore at the fabric of Canadian life. The steel industry, once a symbol of strength, was now on its knees. A trade war had devastated communities that never asked for it. Canada refused to be silent in the face of economic attack. Prime Minister Carney, resolute and defiant, declared, "My country is not for sale." His words became a rallying cry for millions. Canadians took to the streets waving flags and demanding fair trade. From big cities to small towns, protests erupted in a show of unity. The message was clear: Canada would not be bullied. A Buy Canadian movement swept the nation. Citizens chose homegrown products over American ones. It was a peaceful but powerful rebellion. Canadians stood together, determined to protect their economy and dignity. The world saw a nation fighting back, not with anger, but with pride. The government's tough stance inspired ordinary people to act. If friendship was no longer valued, Canada would stand on its own. The country's resolve was unbreakable. The US-Canada trade war sent shockwaves around the world. Traditional American allies, Europe, Japan, watched in alarm. The old rules of global friendship were crumbling. Nations realized they could no longer rely on US support. Canada, the EU, and Japan began forging new partnerships. They discussed trade agreements that excluded the US, building a powerful economic bloc. The focus shifted to stability and predictability, without Washington. Cooperation expanded to critical minerals, securing vital resources together. The world's alliances were being rewritten. New power centers emerged as the G7 fractured. The trade war, meant to strengthen America, pushed others to build a future less dependent on US leadership. Global relationships were being reshaped for a generation. The map of trade and friendship was changing before our eyes. The US-Canada bond was always more than economic, it was military too. For generations, they stood together as allies, defending North America. But the trade war poisoned even this sacred trust. Tensions spilled into defense cooperation. Joint military exercises became strained, communication grew difficult. The camaraderie between soldiers faded, replaced by suspicion. This was dangerous. North America's security depended on seamless teamwork. The America First policy made Canada question U.S. commitment. Could they still trust each other in a crisis? The rift raised terrifying questions about the future of continental defense. The damage wasn't just economic, it threatened the very security of both nations. The foundation of mutual defense now had deep cracks. The alliance was no longer unbreakable. The 2025 G7 summit marked a turning point for North America. The trade war didn't just hurt economies, it shattered trust and forced nations to rethink old alliances. The era of easy cooperation was over. A new age of conflict and competition had begun. North America's deep ties couldn't be erased overnight, but they were badly damaged. Canada and Mexico began seeking new partners, aiming to reduce dependence on the U.S. The continent risked becoming more divided, less competitive. For consumers, this meant higher prices and fewer choices. For workers, it meant uncertainty and upheaval. The vision of a united Team North America was gone. The events of 2025 were a stark lesson. Alliances are fragile and must be nurtured. The future will be forged in the fire of this conflict. Whether North America emerges stronger or permanently divided remains to be seen. One thing is certain, nothing will ever be the same again.